There's another word that starts with a C that I love, and it's called contented. That's a good word. I don't know that we've always been contented with our circumstance.
Sure.
We want to be better. But deep down, to be contented is partly recognizing the whole picture and not just a piece of it.
Right.
And so I really like that word, contented. And
Welcome. I'm glad to be here in your home. We kind of have the podcast here today at your guys' place, and this has been a little long in the making. We've been talking about it, going back and forth, trying to figure out a time. So I'm glad we could get here because you guys just got back from Switzerland, right?
Yes.
And so I'm excited to hear a little bit about that. And you guys obviously travel a fair amount, and I heard that you're going to be headed out to Florida pretty soon as well.
Yes.
So well, let's start there. I'm just curious about your travels to Switzerland. I've never been there, and obviously that's probably a pretty unique but exciting experience. Was that your first time, or?
we've been to Europe, 3 times? And Louise is a travel bug. Once she gets me in country, I can get the fever, but it takes me a while to get the energy up. But the alternative is I don't eat here for a week or 2 or 3. But anyway, back to Switzerland. The food was so-so, but the people were great. Everything we wanted to see, we saw, and it was just a wonderful experience.
What type of food do they serve there? That was so-so.
Ironically, a lot of Italian food.
A lot of Italian, Swiss German,
Okay.
and I wanted to go and taste a Swiss fondue, which didn't happen, but a lot of chocolate, a lot of cheeses. But we actually went to Switzerland, flew in and out of Zurich, but our biggest objective was to see the Italian Dolomites.
Okay.
And that's where we went first from Zurich.
What are the Dolomites?
The Dolomites are part of the whole Alpha region.
Oh, okay.
And, but they're a little bit, it seemed like they were taller mountains, more rugged, straight up and down. The mountains were just straight up and down.
It's like super pointy? And,
Yes,
okay.
yes. But then valleys that are just lush and beautiful, rivers and streams.
Yeah.
And Switzerland was much the same, but the mountains there were a little greener, forested,
Okay.
and all shades of green. It was just beautiful, all of it.
So where are the Dolomites? They're not in Switzerland, or are they somewhere?
They're in Italy. They form the border of Austria and Italy.
Gotcha.
And when we came out of the Dolomites, we were just about 30, 40 minutes north of Venice. So, and that was the region that we visited. The Dolomites actually extend farther west that we didn't go into.
Okay.
But we felt like we saw what we wanted to see in that area.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That's
it
exciting.
was beautiful.
Were you guys right near the mountains, or how close you get? Because I went to Yellowstone a little bit a month ago. Probably they're probably not similar at all experience wise, but you have I can't even remember the mountain range there, but it's a really popular one. I was near Jackson Hole. The name escapes me, but anyways, that mountain range, really popular mountain range right there near Jackson Hole, and you can get kind of close, at least where we were at, but there's those overlooked spots on the road. But were you guys really close to the mountain range there, or how?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were in the mountains.
In the mountain range.
And
Okay.
We were
he
in it.
drove in those little hairpin turns
Oh, wow.
and curvy roads where we were right there.
Yeah, you're not looking at it from afar. You're literally in it, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And that's what we expected. That's what we were able to enjoy. And in hindsight, it was a good trip.
Sure it
It was
was.
a very good trip.
A lot of ski regions.
Okay.
And so we were leaving one and traveling through a mountain pass to go to another, Cortina, which is where the 1956 Winter Olympics were held.
Oh, cool.
And we had to climb even higher, and right on top of that mountain pass was a man and a woman who had a little wood carving shop,
Oh.
and they sold trinkets and
We got a
Yes.
basket full.
yes,
Oh,
we
really?
did. Yes, we did.
The richest little couple on the planet.
Yeah. So they were just like in the middle of this mountain range and kind of on the road as you were driving through.
It was a good 30 minutes down to the nearest community, but they
Okay.
were right up on top. It was snowing, and
Huh.
it was just beautiful. And then what was interesting was that we were visiting with a gal at one of the hotels who was from Switzerland, and she indicated she'd been to Arizona.
Oh. Huh.
And she says, I live in these mountains. They are beautiful, but there was nothing like Arizona. We agreed
I guess
somewhat, but she said, where was it, the Chiricahua Mountains down in southern Arizona, she was just blown away by it.
Really?
And so, of course, she had seen the Grand Canyon, and there were
It's kind of what you're
others.
used to and what
Uh-huh.
you are accustomed to.
Yeah,
Right.
she
Yeah.
wanted to talk about Arizona.
Yeah. I guess if you did, I guess if you've never been to the desert or you haven't really seen the Grand Canyon, it's pretty cool.
You
But
bet.
we
you
get pretty
bet.
used to it here.
Yes,
Yeah.
Just
yes.
looks like dry dirt.
Like
Yeah.
she's used to the greenery and the
It's brown versus green is
Yes.
what it is. So, anyway, when we got married, Louise told me nothing about her desires to travel. She kept it to herself. I do know that we went on a couple of dates over to the airport, and she would stop looking at me and view the airplanes and say, I wonder where they're going. And it never connected with me. I never put the dots together, and lo and behold, 50 whatever years later, she reveals to me the truth. We are going to travel. And fortunately, we've been able to do it and plan for it. Financially, it's not a game breaker if you
Yeah.
plan for it. So it's brought a lot of joy to our being together and the things that we're able to enjoy.
What do you not like about traveling? Is it the flight? The
Airplane.
Okay.
And the people sitting next to me. I want a little person.
Yeah.
But Louise always gets the window,
Yeah.
which means I'm in the middle.
Oh, you're the buffer. You're the buffer seat.
And it's kind of like this last trip, I said, Louise, I don't want to sit by you. You stay by the window, but I want on the aisle.
Yeah.
I want an aisle seat. And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Louise, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
I guess if you don't like being on a plane, flying from here to Switzerland is quite a flight.
somebody somewhere has a first class ticket,
Yeah.
and they love flying, but that is not me.
It's too good. Where have you guys, obviously Switzerland you guys most recently went to, but where else have you guys traveled to since the travel bug has kicked in and you've started your adventures?
Well, several years ago, we went to London, and that was our first time there, and it was wonderful. We saw the touristy sites, and we went up to the area of Dover, saw the White Cliffs, and toured a castle there. It was nice.
Yeah.
However, when we were there, London was on a garbage strike,
Oh.
and so the city was just overloaded with bags and bags of
Mm.
litter.
Uh.
And so, and then last year we got to do France.
Okay.
That was
That was spectacular.
unbelievable. Yeah, we had a wonderful guide, Mr. Brad Clark, who's the recorder of the Gilbert Temple, and he served a
Okay.
mission in France, so he
Yeah.
speaks fluently, and he loves to go back any chance he can get. So we piled in the car, and he drove us from one end of the country to the next.
Oh,
We saw almost all of it.
wow.
It was wonderful.
other places that we've been, and we don't do this in a bragging way, because I'm sure a lot of people would love to do it. We were just been fortunate, and of course it spans a number of years. So we
did Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu in Peru, which
Yeah.
was wonderful.
Yeah.
Once I got there, it was great. We've been to Argentina, Chile.
And we did Canada. We did the western part of the North America where we followed the train route, but rented a car and just did it, the two of us. So that was wonderful.
And of course, we did take our married children to southern Italy, Rome, and we went south and so forth, and so all of those places are just wonderful destinations.
That was a trip and a half. We did Rome and Florence and Venice, and then we split up, and our daughter and her husband went with Mitch and I down to the Amalfi Coast,
Okay. Yeah.
and saw Pompeii and the island of Capri, and it was incredible. That was our 50th anniversary celebration.
There is another part of our traveling lives which I really like, and I think Louise does too. I'm not looking at her right, and that's just road trips. This has just been a fun thing for us to do. Hey, what have we got going this weekend? Nothing. Well, let's jump in the car and go to X or Y, and those are really fun. And frankly, there's so many places to see that are really not that far away.
Right.
And just beautiful things to do and to see and experience. And that's a fun thing for us to do. And I like to drive.
Sure.
And without any itinerary, without any, hey, we've got to be here at X time. And that's my idea of travel. And I love it. So, what was our last trip? We, of course,
Well, years ago we lived in Kingman,
Okay.
and the bank sent us up there, and so it was one ward, and we were part of the Henderson, Nevada stake. So we just said, hey, we have a whim, let's drive out and see Bullhead City, Lake Havasu, Kingman again. Now Kingman is 2 stakes. Lake Havasu is huge compared to what it was when we lived in the area. And that was fun to see the growth.
Yeah.
anyway, there are just so many places to go and experience that are pretty much within everybody's grasp,
Right.
you know, time-wise, financially,
Yeah.
just to have them make a decision to do it. I will say this, we, one day we said, what do we want to do this weekend? Well, let's get on a plane and go to Mexico City. And frankly, it wasn't that expensive, it was spur of the moment, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
Because both of us had been there 50 years ago.
Okay.
On
Yeah.
our own, individually, and it was fun to go back and see things, go to the temple,
Right.
and experience the people and the culture, which, for me as a Spanish speaker, was
Oh, you speak
extra
Spanish.
special. I try. I try.
He does a good job.
So,
One more trip I forgot to mention, and I have to say this because I was just darn right proud of myself. We went to Alaska,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I wanted to fish, so we rented a guide, and I
may
had
I
my...
interrupt right here? Louise has used the fishing as to tempt me on various occasions.
It works.
No, this, Alaska was the only time that the fishing really worked. The rest of it was just the guys. It was just a trap. But go ahead and finish Alaska. We did catch a lot of fish, by the way.
Well, we stood in that Kenai River with our waders on and
Yeah.
just learned to cast and reel them in, and
Mine were bigger
brought
than
home
yours.
about 40 pounds of salmon.
Oh wow.
So
I've heard the wildlife and fishing and hunting in Alaska is like worth going for.
it was a lot of fun.
It's not what you expect unless you get into an airplane and fly back into the interior.
Yeah.
There's quite a few people,
Oh, is there? Okay.
and it's not remote,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean it isn't good.
Yeah.
Okay, it's wonderful.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I guess you do typically think Alaska's pretty remote, nobody's there, it's maybe just a little village here and there, but I guess Anchorage and some of those cities are probably pretty big.
And the Kenai Peninsula where we've been on several times. But anyway, the fishing was good. Thank you, Louise.
So what would you say? I mean, it's probably hard to pick out of all these different places, but was there one that was, favorite place to visit? I guess they're all a little different because, you go to Europe, it's got a different feel. You go to Machu Picchu, it probably has a completely different feel to it, but what maybe was your favorite, or what was some things you learned from it and enjoyed about it?
Well, my two favorite trips were when we took the kids to Italy, our married kids and their spouses, and then the next, of course, right up there was the trip to France. But this one we just got home from was right up there as well.
During our employment, I say our, Louise was probably as much of my banking career as I was, but we were fortunate enough to win, I'll use that term, several trips with the bank, multiple times to Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
We went to the Dominican Republic, and that's another day, another story as to why the senior vice president took us to there.
Yeah.
But it was really pretty good. The difference is when you win a trip and everything's paid for, it's not like when you go on your own and you're looking in your wallet saying, I think we're out of money. It's just a little different experience because they spare nothing because they want to say thank you for all of the good things that you accomplished, and so forth. So that's been a fun. But back to your question as to, I think to me, just seeing people and finding out how good people are. So I get a third world picture in my mind sometimes about who people are and where they live and what they're doing and so forth. And when you get there, that disappears. They either have as much or more than we do.
Right.
But they're always happy. And we've been in the midst of some poor circumstances. I wouldn't call them third world, but they're happy, and it's just fun to be around happy people.
Yeah.
And that want to help and reach out and practice their English, of course.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think that? Because I've been talking to a few other people on the podcast who've traveled and they have some similar thought process about people as well, where they go and you're not sure exactly what to expect, but you get there and you meet the people, and even with sometimes very little as far as what we in the world would consider, monetarily or whatever, but they're very happy. And what do you think that is about? What is it about that?
Well, I think the challenge is that we describe happiness in our terms, the things that make us happy, the things that make our life comfortable, the things that are so good around us. And so we start measuring other people by our circumstance, when in fact, they may not even want our circumstance. They view it in their own world, in their own circumstance. And so happiness is a very relative thing. And it's just fun to watch people that mind observing they don't have much, but in their eyes they have everything. And I think there's something to be learned from that. And so those are the kind of experiences that, you see wonderful things that you've read about, but when you can move away from that, there's times when you can identify with the people and not their hard circumstance, but their happiness, and the ways that they find happiness and joy in the things that surround them.
Yeah. And was it usually just kind of their family? Was it the little jobs that they, or the purpose in the community? What did it seem like was what they found their happiness in?
We were at the sacrament meeting in Lucerne, Switzerland last Sunday.
Yeah.
And of course, we couldn't speak the language, but a little man about 85 years old. I kind of watched him, and he was just hugging everybody, and he spotted us. He'd never seen us before. He came up and just wrapped his arms around both of us and gave us the biggest hug. And in his foreign language, he tried to speak, and I couldn't understand it, but I think I know what he said. He wanted us to know he was a member of this church. And he was literally happy. And he was proud to be able to tell us that. He wasn't there just as a bystander or a visitor. He was happy to be a member of the church, and it showed. He loved on everybody. So,
one of the things that surprised me a little bit, and I say surprised, this would go back to our recent trip, also to when we were in Italy and France. France in particular, I was surprised at how many children there were and how many young couples there were with children.
Yeah.
And it surprised me because I'd heard just the opposite.
Right,
you
right.
know, that it was kind of don't get married, don't have family. And I didn't see that. Now, there were a lot of people that we didn't see.
Right.
But we also experienced many, particularly young couples with children. Yeah. And they were having a ball, wherever they were at. It didn't matter what they were doing or where they were at. They were happy because they just had their little family, and we saw them on the planes, on the trains, on everywhere, and it was a real joy to see them experiencing the happiness of family life. It's different than what I expected, and I mean that in a very positive way.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Matt. Thanks for listening to the program, and I want to now take a moment to talk about something really important, something that's making a real difference in people's lives. It's called Surmount Global Foundation, and it's all about resilience, helping people build the mental, emotional, and physical strength to take on life's challenges and come out stronger. This is a group that I've founded and been a part of for quite a while, and we're producing powerful content, hosting speaking events, and creating real opportunities for people to grow. And guess what? You can be a part of this movement too. Right now, we are raising funds to take this to the next level, funding game-changing events, creating resources, and reaching even more people who need this message. If you believe in resilience, in growth, and in lifting people up, which I know you do because you listen to this program, now is the time to step in. And here's the best part. Every donor, every supporter, every person who gets involved becomes part of something bigger, a movement that is shaping people's lives. So if you want to make an impact, if you want to support a mission that truly matters, visit surmountglobal.org and help us bring this vision to life. Let's build something powerful together. Surmount Global Foundation, because resilience changes everything.
No, that's interesting because when I've heard people talk about, especially Paris and France, and you hear kind of a mixed variety of opinions about going to Europe, but that's interesting that when you went there was, really nice experience, lots of families, and because you don't always hear that about some places. But I guess that is the difference between hearing about something but then also going and seeing it yourself and experience it is, a lot of people can give a lot of different views and opinions about it, but when you get there in person, you can kind of get a first-hand feel.
well, people were friendly.
Yeah.
We found that now when we were in Interlaken, Switzerland.
I'm an interrupter, Louise, one more.
We got it.
Interlaken. You only can say that word 2 more times. I'm done with it.
When we were there, we were lost, and we ended up on a bike path. And it was
Kept
so
getting narrower.
it was so wide when we got on it, but it kept getting narrower. And then there were 2 people. One was a man walking his dog, who was alarmed when he saw us, rightfully so. He was on the bike path walking his dog, and he approached us with some not very nice looks. But once he saw us, And we just said, we're lost. He took pity on us and he became very nice.
It's amazing how soft people can become when they feel sorry for you.
They felt sorry.
These people don't have a clue.
And then he said, you have to turn around. Well, can't we just go up there and turn? No, it's very narrow at where you're wanting to go. You can't turn around. Well, we
went anyway.
thanked him and went a little ways. And then a guy came on a motorcycle, and again, he approached us with just evil in his eyes. He was mad at us. You can't be here. And we said, we're lost. And the minute he took pity on us, he became quite soft. But he got out of the way so that right then and there we were able to back up.
When all else fails, be meek and humble, and it works
Yes,
every
it
time.
works.
That's true. I guess it's amazing how just asking for a little help, people are usually pretty willing to give it.
It changed their
Yeah.
tune.
Yeah.
What did you guys end up doing? So how did you first get on this bike path? And where was this? I know you said we can only say it 2 more
We
times, but where
were
was
we
this?
were looking for a place to stay for the night,
Yeah.
and every place was too expensive. So there's got to be somewhere around here that nobody else wants to stay at.
Right.
No,
Which we ultimately found.
we had seen a place the day before, and we said, let's just go back there.
Okay.
And it was nice, and we can handle the cost. We spent an hour looking for it. We couldn't find it. We didn't write the name of the hotel. We're not real smart sometimes. But we couldn't find it, and so it took us all over Interlaken.
Interlaken.
We
Just spent an
spent
hour.
all of our money on the little wood carvings. So we were almost to a point of having to sleep in the car. But we had our wood carvings. We did bump into the people that we bought them from down there. They were driving in their Lexus.
Well, did you make it out of Interlaken, or did you?
We finally
Did you spend all
did.
your time in Interlaken?
We found a room, I swear, there was no way you're gonna fall out of your bed because there was not any way you could. You'd hit a wall, it was like, anyway, those are different stories, they're still fun.
Oh
But,
man, you got me crying. That's too funny.
Oh,
Oh man.
it was, this was in Lucerne, and it was a budget hotel. I mean, it wasn't a Motel 6, but it was, you know.
Motel 13.
So the room was so small, and the bed was small, but we were glad after we'd been driving all day, so Mitch was eating a chocolate candy bar with peanuts in the bed, and a peanut fell onto the sheets, and I said, Mitch, we gotta throw this out, there's not room for 3 of us. So we finally made it through the night, but oh.
Actually,
Oh man.
we stayed in some nice places
Oh.
but anyway.
Oh man. But how did you get on that bike path with your car? Did you get lost and?
It looked like just the roads we'd been on in the mountains.
Yeah. Okay.
The one lane road meant for 2 cars, but
Okay.
all of the European cars were very small. We were in an SUV.
Okay. How did you get? What did you say?
Anyway,
An
so
Escalade.
anyway, we just
That
thought
was
that
to carry our luggage.
the wood carvings. They came
The
in handy.
wood carving
Came in
that
handy.
we were coming out with.
But that little bike lane looked about the same size as what we'd been traveling for hours through the mountaintops. So we didn't know, and we just got the, we followed the GPS as best we could, but that GPS wasn't always right. It wasn't.
It was kind of slow. I'd already turned when it said, don't turn. Anyway,
Well, it was an adventure, and the one thing we came out of it with is a nice dent and scratches on the rental car. Because he missed a hairpin turn in. But so, we'll
It was
survive.
your fault.
So did you make it? So once you met those two, started unfriendly, but then turned friendly folks, how did you make it off that bike road and back onto the main road?
We had to turn around somehow. There were a few instances on this trip we had to find a way to turn around. I don't know how you did it.
Actually, we didn't turn around
Yes,
because
we backed up and turned and then got on it. Some kind of.
Anyway, someone else had been there because there was this big rock in the way, and someone had moved it already. So I'm sure we weren't the first people to do this.
Of course not.
Probably.
Of course
Because
not.
they moved the rock just enough for our car to get through. Anyway, it was just a fun thing. And I think we might have been looking for that crepe factory when we got lost. We didn't find that either.
We didn't.
By the way, well, another day we'll explain to you about the do's and don'ts of traveling. But they were all fun and they're all good memories. But I would think twice about the breakfast at the hotel.
Was it not a good breakfast?
Oh, some of them were okay.
Kind of all the same when you go to Europe. A lot of prosciutto and cheeses and rolls. And,
I see.
we kind of, their sausages look different. And, I'm used to Jimmy Dean and these are a little different. But that's about it.
If I have yogurt one more time, there's something going to happen to the inside of my body.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess their food is probably a little different there than here.
No wonder they're so happy.
So you did talk about a little before the podcast, having watched a movie that had some historical significance, and obviously when you go to some of these different countries, it probably is cool because there's a lot of history in America too, probably a little more on the East Coast, and then as you get more Western, there is some, but it's more pioneer history or settler type history, and maybe Mexican American War if you go down towards near Mexico, Texas area. But you go over to Europe, there's so many years of people living there, so much rich history. You talk about seeing some castles, but I'd love to hear a little bit about, you said you wanted to see I'll let you tell the story, but about those fellows who didn't want to go with Nazi Germany or something like that. I was kind of setting things up, so I missed parts of it, but I'd love to hear more about some of the cool historical things that you saw maybe.
Well, big picture, one of the takeaways if you go to Europe is the World War I, World War II most particular.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. I mean, it's probably one of the darkest times in the history of Europe.
Yeah.
They look back on that, and there's so many things to go see from a historical standpoint that help you appreciate some of the things that we don't even imagine.
Right.
We're so far away from what's really going on in World War II, but they lived it.
Yeah.
And for some, they're still living it.
Really?
And there's a lot of wonderful things to see. Great stories about people that overcame a lot. And our trip to the Dolomites, for example, was really prompted by a historical event of World War II, which I'd never heard about. I'll leave it with this. If anyone's listening right now, if you haven't turned us off already, it's called A Hidden Life. And I would recommend it. And it'll give you some aspect of what life was like before and during, and the countryside and everything else that surrounded their circumstance.
Hidden
Great
Life
stories.
is a movie. It's a movie.
It's a movie.
When you go to places like we were, they're so, it's old, it's the old world. And somehow they've been able to preserve a lot of that. The first night we stayed in a little town in the Dolomites, we stayed in a little hotel that was built,
Nice, very nice hotel.
that was built in the 12th century.
Oh, wow.
And it's carved on the cement blocks that were holding up part of the roof, you know, the year. So anyway, and then when we were leaving the Dolomites, there's a place called Brenner Pass. And it's very significant to the people in that area because back after World War II, World War I, and then there was another Italian-German war, but the armies, the German armies, the Austrian armies marched through that pass to meet up with the Italians. And so it's very significant. It's fun to read about it on the internet, but now there, of course, there's a nice Autobahn, and you get on that and drive through it. And then we were in Verona. We'd never been to Verona. It's between Venice and Milan in northern Italy. There is a Colosseum there that's older than the Rome Colosseum.
Really?
It's massive. It's not quite as big as the Colosseum in Rome. It's not quite as tall. And they call it the arena, but we didn't get to see it because we couldn't find parking. Lots of people in our way. We spent about 45 minutes trying to find a way to park and walk. We couldn't. But we saw the wall that surrounded it. I have a picture of it, and it's just ancient. Again, it was built probably in the 11th century, wasn't it? And but they still use it. They perform operas, live operas, and operettas are performed there weekly, and so it's a popular place.
I think one of the things is that there's so many things that are very popular to see, and they are great. They are fantastic. But if you have the time and the mindset, it's not that hard in wherever we've been to move away from that which is most popular and just kind of get down to a more daily routine, day-to-day living circumstance with whether it's a place or a people, and all of a sudden your experience changes a little bit. And even there, though, you can dig into the historical facts and details of how they got there, what's happened to them, and pretty soon you begin to love people that you've never met.
Right.
And probably never will meet, at least in this life. And that's just a great feeling when you can begin to understand and appreciate all that people have gone through just to be where they are and who they're trying to be. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's true. Sometimes you'll drive through a small little town, and I know I've been in rides with him before, driving through a small town, and you think to yourself, oh, how could anyone live here, how could there be anything going on here? But if you, get off the well beaten down path and explore a little bit, you start finding people who are living lives and doing things, and it becomes a lot more impactful, probably.
Yeah.
Kind of see it in real time.
For sure. We've done some interesting things. Louise has talked me into a couple of road trips that, in hindsight, I'm really glad we did.
Yeah.
At the time, why am I doing this? How did I let Louise talk me into this? But, and we don't go into the details, but they're just kind of fun things that you've heard about, that you've read about, that you've seen in a movie.
Yeah.
And I want to go there. I want to be there. And you get there, and all of a sudden, life is really, really good because you identify all of a sudden with people in their individual circumstance.
Several years ago, we had a son-in-law, our daughter, their family living in the D.C. area. He worked for the Department of Treasury, and there was an election, a new new hierarchy moved in, and so it was time for them to move back. And he had just bought a car the year before, and he was gonna sell it. We said, we'll buy it. So he parked it out at the BWI airport, and I just planned a trip. It was our American history trip. We flew back to BWI and got out of the airplane and walked right to where he told us the car was, and then our trip began. And we did historical sites down the East Coast,
Oh, wow.
Jamestown. But I had done some research and study, and President Carter had been out of office, what,
Jimmy Carter.
15 years? And he still taught Sunday school in Plains, Georgia, where he's from.
Oh, wow.
So we did a detour, went into Plains, Georgia, and went to the Maranatha Baptist Church and listened to him teach his Sunday school lesson.
Wow.
It was awesome.
It was wonderful.
He taught out of the book
Really
of
pretty good
John,
lesson.
and it was an experience. We had to be frisked, and anyway, it was wonderful. And then we were able to drive into Tallahassee, Florida, and get to our own meetings. And then we came across on the 10, all the way across the southern part of the United States. And we did the Alamo. We tried to get into the Houston Space Center, but
Got lost.
couldn't find parking again. So we drove around the complex, and then, anyway.
There's only 100 square miles of parking places to park.
Anyway, that was a fun trip.
What was that like? Because we read or hear about or even research some of these stories, especially American history. That's where we're from. These stories, and people always talk about when you go there, you feel like one, you're in the history a little bit, but two, there's kind of a feeling of like, wow, this was really, you kind of get in the. I don't exactly know how to explain it, but you get a feeling of what
Sure.
took place there. What was that like? You guys have any of those experiences?
Well, we've been back, yes, we've been back to DC several times, and it's always wonderful to be where there's true history.
Well, if you we've been to Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and if you're into history, you could spend your lifetime there. But we were able to get away out of town a little bit from some of the historical things. And where did George Washington?
Valley Forge.
Valley
We went up
Forge.
to Valley Forge.
You want to get a feel for something that was real from a historical standpoint. Go to a place like Valley Forge, and it doesn't take long to get away from what your eyes see, and pretty soon you've got what your heart can feel, and what your mind starts telling you
Something
about people.
something interesting about that, when you think of Valley Forge, don't you see pictures in your mind of frozen, they were freezing, it's just snow, and their eyelids covered with snow.
Yeah.
But what we learned when we went there is actually the reason it was so awful there is it wasn't cold enough.
Really?
Because the ground hadn't frozen over, and it was sloshy and muddy, and horses and wagons and whatever else, cannons got stuck
They
in the
couldn't
mud,
get
and they
food to
couldn't
them.
get
Right.
It was
food. That was kind of a different impression that we had.
So sometimes when in your travels, I guess the lesson to be learned is that what you read about is not necessarily reality.
Right.
Okay? And that can be a plus, it can be a minus, but it's just getting a full picture of what's going on. So if there's anyone listening right now and you're pushing back a little bit because your wife wants to travel, give it up. Get
Just
over it.
go.
Get over it. You'll survive, and you'll be a better person for it.
I'm curious because just in our talking about, and I've known you guys for a long time, obviously. Well, you guys know me probably since I was just a little kid. But you guys obviously have a great marriage. You've been married, I don't know how long, but for a long time, I would assume.
You know what? This October, it will be 55 years.
Wow.
I've been saying 53 for the last 4 years. And it's 55. Time for another trip.
There you go. Trip, celebrate 55.
Got Matt, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it.
Not sure what I walked into there.
By the way, it has been a wonderful 55 years. It's been a learning curve. Some of us have had to learn more than others, but it has been a learning curve nonetheless.
How have you guys, like, I think, especially I'm going to get married soon, but I think a lot of people, relationships aren't always the easiest. You have to work together, communicate, kind of learn as time goes on. What has worked for you guys? And obviously you guys have raised a family and lived a full life, now you're traveling. And so what maybe has worked for you guys?
Well, there have been times that, have been hard, and there's supposed to be those times, because that's how you learn and you grow. The key is trying to get on and stay on the same page. You may not always agree, but eventually you need to come together somewhere, because you don't want one dominating the other all of the time. That doesn't make for a happy marriage. So it's a lot of compromising, getting on the same page as much as you can. But I will tell you, I told Mitch years ago, if he can still make me laugh, I'm still there with you. We laugh a lot, and it's been fun. You just have to be able to laugh.
We did have a couple of episodes on this last trip when we were laughing so hard in the car. That's probably when we scratched it.
Well, Mitch just had to forgive me for throwing his peanut out off the bed, and then once he got past that, we started laughing.
We've never, I want to talk about the money we had before we went on this last trip. Seriously, for the first few years of marriage, I'm a banker, so what do? I balance the checkbook. And frankly, we didn't have very much money to balance anyway. And and Louise, she got her budget. Here's your money. Here's my money. And after a while, that wasn't working. So I turned everything over to Louise. It was the best thing that I ever did. Two things happened when she took over. About a week after she started doing the books, she came to me and says, I always thought you had a secret stash of money somewhere. And she says, we don't have a secret stash of money, do we? I said, no, we never did. But she thought I did, and it bothered her. I was holding out, No, only 1/2 gallon of milk.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened, and this did take a little bit of time, but frankly not as long as I thought, she got us out of debt. And the key to our financial circumstance right now is we don't owe any money.
Right.
And haven't for a long time. And so I applaud Louise. She's got her way of managing the money, and I don't understand it. It's way complicated. But it works, and that's all that matters. And so that's been a learn for me. And it's been something that we don't do it together. I just turn it over to Louise, and the rest of it just takes care of itself.
Well, that's interesting. I think, you guys make good points about how there's some things you got to come together on, and there's other things where you find whose role it is to manage what and do what, and figure out how that works. But I like what you said too about laughter. If you can make each other laugh and enjoy each other's company, I would assume that's a huge part of a relationship.
Huge.
If you can't, you don't enjoy being around each other, it doesn't make for a very good time. I would assume.
Well, because you have serious things come into your life,
Right.
and you can't avoid those things, but yeah, you've got to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and look back and sometimes laugh about some things, but it's,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you. You, honey. I look at where we're at and what's happened to our life, be it temporal, spiritual, whatever. And I guess this might run contrary to popular opinion, but I don't remember planning any of this. I don't remember setting goals for any of this. I don't remember saying this is what I want to do and this is where I want to be at X point in time in our life. This is where we want to. I don't remember that conversation. I do the best you can, take things a bite at a time, and somehow, some way, pretty soon you're looking in your rearview mirror and you say, wow, how did we get here? I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't know that we've worked hard. We've been really good workers in many different ways. But I never worked really hard to be at a certain spot. I don't know what I'm trying to say other than just keep moving down the road and take advantage of things as they come along. And I'm not a planner. I'm not a goal setter, and I don't want to be. I've been blessed in so many ways. I just got to turn it over to Heavenly Father and let Him do what's best for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not. Louise, she likes to plan a little bit, trips.
Yeah.
I have a fear, and this is my opportunity to ask Louise about her next trip, but I'm afraid she'll answer.
I don't know, we have a sick little doggy now. He was diagnosed with diabetes and he's gone blind, and so it would be hard to take off and leave him again.
That's true.
So,
Yeah, I think you guys make a good point though. It's like, sometimes I think people they try to plan every aspect of their life and they want to pick, where exactly they're going to end up in 50, 60 years and then when it doesn't quite go exactly how they planned, that can be a devastating turn of events. But who's to say, I think sometimes people don't realize that maybe you weren't supposed to end up in that spot. Maybe there was a better or different plan in place for you. And so in your life a little more open to where it could take you, I guess,
right.
can be a good way to look at life,
Right.
live life.
Well, you make a decision, and we've made thousands upon thousands of decisions, and everybody does. But sometimes contrary to what I just said a minute ago, you still go through the pluses and minuses of a decision. And I think a lot of times Heavenly Father just says, if that's the reason you want to accept for what I told you to do, then you start believing that. But that has nothing to do with what I've got in store for you.
Right.
I just want you to get there, and I'll tell you the reasons why later. And that's happened to us on numerous occasions. We thought we knew why we chose to do this or that, when in fact what Heavenly Father had in store was totally different.
Yeah.
And better, by the way.
So how do you guys handle that when, obviously, it's kind of a hindsight type situation. You look back and you go, okay, this was not what I thought the reason was I was doing this, but I'm glad it turned out this way. Do you have any examples where, so people younger listening can go, okay, I can understand what that looks like? Because I think in the moment, sometimes either it's hard to accept or you do really think that you're doing it for one reason or another and you try to move forward. But do you have any examples of where that may be applicable?
Well, we built this home 52, 53 years ago, and McQueen was a dirt road, 2-lane dirt road,
Wow.
and we've had opportunity to move. But when you're prayerful about big decisions like that, even little decisions, you just hope that you're following what the Spirit is telling you. And we look back now, we had an opportunity to move and sell our home, but we kept it. We were gone 6 years with the bank's transfers, but we came back here, and then we had the opportunity about almost 20 years ago to move when they started to build this freeway. We had to look and say, what shall we do? Well, we can move, we can build on here and move our day-to-day living back here away from the road. And we decided to just stay put, and then when we look back and reflect, there's been some wonderful callings we've been a part of that have blessed our lives. I don't know about anybody else, but they have blessed our lives. And I can also tell you, when Mitch was in the heart of earning a living with the bank, and we would look at retirement 5, 10 years down the road. When we'd get in the car, we'd kind of find it fun. Okay, well, we've got this fund here, we've got some stock, we've got a little of this, and we should get this in the 401k. By the time we retire, we should have X amount. And that was kind of fun to do, because you do have to kind of plan. Are you doing things right? I mean, are you investing? Are you not investing? When it came time to retire and all was said and done, we had more than we ever put down on paper. And we're not billionaires, we're not in the wealthy upper crust of society, but what has been a life's lesson to us is the wonderful principle of tithing. We've always been full tithe payers, and the Lord has compensated in rich blessings, and when it came time for retirement, lo and behold, nobody was more surprised than us. So we consider it a blessing from above.
We still wonder where it came from.
Yeah. and I need to emphasize, we're not wealthy, but we have enough to sustain our standard of living, whatever that is. We're out of debt, we can stay out of debt. We're just so grateful. We're so grateful.
We've been blessed in lots of different ways. I guess I would, and sometimes things just take time. I mean, we look at who we are and where we're at, and all the things, and then all of a sudden you kind of have to say, hey, wait a minute, but this has taken place over 50 years, It didn't happen, and that's the thing that I would probably say to many people. Have expectations. I think we should have expectations. I think we should expect more out of ourselves, more out of each other. We need to expect more out of Heavenly Father. Why not? He's got it. Why not share it with me? I think we need to expect more, and it's okay to do so. But to expect it tomorrow or next week, or to have my career set 3 years from now, I just got to take a broader view of that and say, hey, good things happen, but for us,
Well, good things happen when you put your nose down and you work.
you just show up every day.
You show up every day, you work, and then good things can come your way, unexpected things.
I think consistency is kind of an interesting word, and I think we just been very consistent in doing our day-to-day, and I mean that literally, day-to-day living. And then all of a sudden it starts building and compounding. There's another word that starts with a C that I love, and it's called contented. That's a good word. I don't know that we've always been contented with our circumstance.
Sure.
We wanted something better. But deep down, to be contented is partly recognizing the whole picture and not just a piece of it.
Right.
And so I really like that word,
Yeah.
contented, and I think consistency. We've been blessed with health, and that's been huge, huge. I've been able to hold on to my employment when there were better people than me. And I mean that sincerely. I don't mean that as a humble comment. It's a truthful, better people than me that got downsized out. So, Heavenly Father, I think if we are grateful and we can be contented and we're consistent in trying to be as good as we can, He'll compensate, and He will be literally in the details of our lives. All of the little things that can become big things, big hurdles, Heavenly Father's taken out of our path. And some of us, we had to crawl over a few too. And personally, as a couple, as a family. But anyway, I guess the rear view mirror can be really fun to look at when you keep things in perspective.
Yeah. No, I think that's really, sometimes we can trip ourselves up along the process because we want to view it from one perspective or another, or one angle, and when we look at the more full picture, we can see that there's a lot more blessings, and usually it does come more in hindsight than in the moment.
Well, I think also we don't realize that if something isn't part of our plan, our ultimate plan, I think we can minimize, and this is not a good thing, we can minimize the other experiences that we're having along the way. As a simple example, we get married. I'm going to school. I have a part-time job. I'm working in a cabinet shop. I'm working on a dairy. I'm doing things that at the time were necessities.
Right.
And it's kind of like, wow, what does this have to do with the rest of my life?
Right.
And I can look back on those two things alone, let alone all the others, and say they had an impact on my future in ways that I didn't understand. And I won't take the time to explain all of the details behind it now, but they impacted our life. So don't give up on the things that you don't think or you may think are unimportant.
Yeah.
That they're not part of my ultimate goal. They are.
Right.
Because you meet people, you gain wisdom, you gain experience, and so forth. So anyway.
Yeah, I guess you don't really always see the cause and effect of what you're currently doing, and even, even some of the actions you take in your current moment. If you were to drastically change them, you don't know how that would have. We can only think so far ahead or see some of the pieces of, maybe how that is playing an effect in our life or saving us from one thing or another, and we don't always see all those angles in the moment. And, luckily the Lord does. He can guide us on that path. But
Career-wise, and then I'll be quick. Career-wise, the best things that happened to us, and I'm speaking in a financial way and a career pathway, came about because of simple comments by people that I met along the way that I had forgotten about. But they short version is, they made a difference in my life. And so I think we need to be very careful about underestimating people and things that we do that are gonna come back to us over the long run.
Absolutely. No, people play a huge impact. I think people don't realize the impact they play on people in general. I think we underestimate our impact on others around us too, and the role we end up playing. I'm curious because you had a career in banking, but then quite the outdoorsman. You also, I know you've done a lot with woodworking and house building and cabin building and all sorts of things. So how did that kind of come into play? And those are kind of two separate worlds. And what did you learn from those two? Maybe what you both learned, building a house and doing those things is kind of a dual effort type thing.
Well, you need to have a strong marriage to build a house. And we had a strong marriage in the house that got built. But it'll tax you.
Well, you built out of necessity. I mean, when we built this house, it was not near the size it is now, but we didn't have the money to, and somehow we got a loan for $23,500. He got pulled together some friends and brother-in-law that would come and help and pulled it off.
So this is kind of the original house what you guys built, obviously adding on to over time, but you.
Yeah, this was not here, none of this, but the living room, the much smaller kitchen. Our bedroom wing now was our garage. My mother came down with ALS after we'd lived here for some years, and we wanted to build a room on for her, and so that room, the south wing in there, where Mitch now gives us patriarchal blessings, we built for her as a bedroom, as a half bath. And I was big and pregnant, this big, and we were in there painting. We were moving her in the next day, had the carpet laid, and we were finished painting. And she passed that night, so she never did get to move in. But most of what you see here has been out of necessity. Build it himself, because we didn't have the means to hire it done. So
You mentioned the out of doors, and I'll go back and just call it wholesome recreational activity. And I'll just speak for myself. I've never been one who goes out with the guys and does things just because I chose not to.
Yeah.
But being out of doors was about family, about being with our kids, and just about enjoying nature. So everybody needs a place, a private place. And everybody needs a time, whether it's Louise, me, or everyone, needs a place that they can go and be by themselves and let the world catch up. And so for me, the out of doors, whether it was hunting or fishing or hiking with the scouts or whatever, which really wasn't by myself, but that's been a blessing to my life. And I'm grateful that I've been physically able to do things.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of my heritage. And, but I would recommend that everybody needs a place, a time that you can, for me, get by yourself.
Yeah. No, I think the outdoors is, you're just getting outside of even just your normal routine and getting out to some place that is quiet and you can hear and get a different perspective. As we talk about perspectives, is it can make the difference in what choices you make and where you decide to go with your life. And just because sometimes when we're in our normal day-to-day, it's, you get thinking about things a certain way, and it's getting away that helps open up your perspective.
it helps you to be content.
Yes.
You can face this or that when you also have time to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I think being, especially, you go out in nature, or you look at the sky or whatever it is, you see how much bigger everything is than just your current little life and circles. Not that everybody's life isn't important, but you know, you just get past yourself a little bit, and I think that can open up and broaden your view and right form that contentment that you are so desperate to, or that you find and need to move forward. Well, I don't know how long we've been going for, but this has been great. I feel like we've had fun, lots of laughs, and good discussions, and I appreciate you guys taking the time, and
Sure.
we kind of fit this in between the couple trips coming up, and I'm glad we did because I've learned a lot, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
we wish you well.
Yes.
Congratulations on getting married.
Thank you.
Just do it as
Wonderful.
good as your mom and dad have, and you're gonna be fine.
I'll try my best. They've been a good example, so I'll try my best. But I'll make sure you guys get a wedding invite, and then at some point maybe we'll do this again. This was fun.
Lovely. Yeah.
So thanks.
Thank you.